Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about the importance of reflection in writing. There's a couple of major ways in which reflection is an important component of the writing process. One of those is within the writing process itself, you want to be reflecting on how you're thinking about your content, how you're approaching it, and why you're thinking about your content and approaching it in those particular ways. This is really important because this is part of critical analysis, and that's at the heart of making a good argument, right? Rhetoric is all about making the right choice for what claims to make, how to structure your argument, how to organize material, what types of appeals to use, what kinds of evidence, etc., etc. And so you have to think carefully about that. You have to reflect on this. So this is one manner of reflection within the writing process for an individual project itself. What am I doing and why? And this can be broken up in a few different ways. One is sort of retrospective approach. And this is often how we think about reflection as such, right? Is sort of looking back on something. So if this is the approach that you're taking, your reflection process might look like, I've written a draft, now I'm going to look back at it. I'm going to review it, right? And so this is basically putting the work of reflection in the revision stage. And that's an important component of revision, right? You can't really revise without reflecting, without sort of asking yourself, okay, what choices did I make and why? Why do these matter? What's important about these choices? That's crucial for revision. You can also, though, divide the sort of reflection process up throughout the writing process itself. So rather than saving it until the end when you've written the draft and you're coming back to it, instead you can sort of reflect at different points along the drafting process, the pre-writing process, and all of this. You build in these sort of reflections where you start to say, okay, I've just done this thing. Why did I do that? And start interrogating your choices. That's a good strategy because rather than waiting until the end and having to go back and sort of fix anything that's not working, you can troubleshoot in the moment, right? So that's one component in which reflection is important, is again, critically returning, going back over the choices you've made in a particular project to make sure that they are the strongest and most effective choices that you can come up with. There's a larger reflective component to the writing process if we think about it as an extended process rather than a single project, right? So one of the things, any writing instructor out there will know this. One of the things that's incredibly frustrating about having to teach a writing course where it's typically one semester long and we're expected to teach students to write effectively, whether that's at the university level specifically, more generally, civic engagement, whatever it is. Or even sort of narrowly focused writing in a particular discipline. Writing is not really something that you can learn in one semester. It is a skill, it is an ability that one develops by doing it over years and years and years and years and years. And any scholar, any writer, any thinker who has been doing this for a while will almost always be less than pleased to see some of their early work, right? There are things that, and sometimes this is like an immediate process. As soon as you publish something, you're like, wow, I can't believe I wrote that. I'm embarrassed that my name is on that. But often this is a sort of longer term thing. So like things I published 6 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that, I generally don't think they're as strong as the things that I'm writing and publishing now, because I've developed my process of writing and thinking it and stuff like this has developed. But the reason that it has developed, or one of the reasons it's developed, is because I think carefully about that writing and thinking process. So it's not just a question of I'm gonna do this and I know the strategies for putting words on paper. It's as I write and as I produce different types of content, I think about what choices I've made and why, and what can I learn for the next time I write something. And so this is the bigger part of reflection in the sort of long-term writing process, right? Where you look back not just at the individual choices in a piece, the way you will with short-term reflection for revision purposes, but you look at your trajectory as a writer, as a thinker, as a scholar, whatever it is, and you say, okay, I used to do things this way, but I've shifted to doing it this way. Why did I do that? Why does this way work? And what were the benefits of this way? And what are the benefits of this way? And when you develop that kind of critical self-awareness, then you actually can take much more purposeful control of your writing process, right? So it's not just, I'm going to write and whatever is on the page is what's on the page, or whatever I feel at that particular moment becomes what's on the page. Instead, you develop an awareness of the recurring patterns of your own writing, and when you're aware of the patterns of your own writing, you can control them much better. And you can say, I don't know if the way that I normally do things is going to work well for this particular project. So, for instance, one of the things that my own inclination when I'm writing a piece of scholarship is actually to start with a theoretical framework. To say, because I'm very interested in critical theory and philosophy and stuff like this. And so I will typically want to say, all right, here's all the philosophy, here's all the critical theory, the scholarly framework that you need to know in order to understand the argument I'm going to be making about this text. I'm aware that that's my typical pattern, and it's not necessarily always the best pattern. Sometimes it's better, and I will often consciously try to do this. Sometimes it's better to break up that theoretical framework and develop portions of it alongside specific readings of the texts. But the reason that I can do that, the reason that I'm aware enough to do that, is because I reflect on my writing process and I'm able to say, okay, what do I typically do? Now I can control that. Now I can make conscious choices about that as opposed to just sort of following along with whatever feels right at the moment. So it's not, basically you go from a sort of vibes-based model of writing to a model of writing in which you're making specific choices about what you as an individual, or I as an individual, you as an individual writer do. Because we all develop patterns. We develop particular tendencies as writers. And being able to take command of those is an incredibly powerful skill as a writer.